Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now today is Sunday, so you know what that means. It's time to go around the net with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. So on the docket for today, we have Marriott making some more subtle tweaks on the business line. We have the retirement of the Rakuten card we'll take a look at. We have American Express making moves on their payment network side. Apple's getting sued again for some payment stuff. And then we'll close with the U.S. government, or at least Senate, sticking their heads into the war of payment networks, trying to pass some potential legislation. So, of course, if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, we are going to lead off with Marriott, and it seems like Marriott has been added over the last few weeks, whether it's bonuses, program tweaks, you name it. They've been all over the place. So this time we have some minor tweaks to the Marriott Business card line, both on the Chase and American Express side, and I was interested to learn that there was actually at one point a Chase Business Marriott card. You can't get it anymore, but from what I understand, it actually did exist. So the changes we have to take a look at here, again, Marriott Business, Chase plus American Express business cards, so they are going to both get Gold Elite status. They're going to get 7% discounts when booking rooms directly, and then 4x back on restaurants worldwide, but though I do believe the American Express one already had that benefit, so we'll put that card on screen for you. Again, the Chase one you can't actually get. So overall, I am a fan of this. I mean, again, the knock on Marriott is always, hey, gold status isn't that great past, late checkout. But anytime you're giving me something without jacking up the annual fee, especially on a legacy card that's, not available for application anymore, I think that's a good move on their part. Now, I do know there's been, some rumors and talk about a more premium Marriott card potentially coming out. Haven't seen anything solid on that yet, but the way Marriott's going these days, it wouldn't surprise me. Again, they've been on a tear the last few days, so if you have either one of those cards, do think these are good additions all the way around. Now with that, we're going to move to American Express, and it's not a new American Express card, but another new American Express partnership. So you may be familiar with the company Cardless. They make cards for companies that don't have a card, hence the name Cardless. We have a video on them. I can link it down below for their cards. Now Cardless currently runs their cards on the MasterCard network. Well, it looks like now American Express is stepping in, and they struck a deal with Cardless to become, the new payment network provider for Cardless credit cards. So if we take a look at this, we have the press release. I'm kind of just pulling some bullet points from it. But again, Cardless will launch new cards on the Amex payment network. So Amex Ventures will make an investment into Cardless as well. Amex Ventures, as you may have guessed, is basically Amex's, quote, strategic investment group. Because you have to throw the word strategic in there, because who would invest non-strategically? But hey, everyone does it. So the benefits that Cardless cards will get, they will get access to Amex offers. They'll get the global dining perk, Resi, and more, because there's always more. So that's from the press release. Now, overall, I don't necessarily know if that means that the current Cardless cards will change from MasterCard to American Express right there. It's entirely possible that, Cardless still has a contract to fulfill with the MasterCard cards. Now, overall, I do like Cardless. It's not that I want their cards specifically. They're not really for me. But I do feel in a co-branded space, they are pretty good cards for what they are and for their specific target demographic. Amex offers on the lower end, no annual fee cards are kind of hit or miss, but Cardless did recently launch an airline card as well, so one of them does have an annual fee, so that could be a potentially interesting play when you add the Resi and the global dining, things like that. It's a nice to have, considering, again, to our Marriott story, at the moment at least, it doesn't cost cardholders anything. So, the big thing that Cardless has now is like, hey, there's a rule where you can only have one Cardless card, which made sense under the old model of like, hey, there's a Boston Celtics one or a Man United one, for that target demo. But if they expand out to travel cards, airlines, hotels, then I can imagine it would make sense to have more than one. So we'll see if Amex gives them any competitive tips along the way. So with that, we're now going to move to the retirement of a card, and that is the Rakuten Visa card. Now, I will admit, I didn't know that they had a credit card, but Rakuten's a pretty popular service, especially in the cashback land, and especially because there was a way to use this to get membership reward points as well. So we take a look at this here. It's interesting. So the card is no longer open to new applicants. Now, existing accounts, it looks like they're going to be just closed out in September, so they're not really transferring the portfolio or selling off the portfolio anywhere. which is pretty interesting. Now, the card highlights where it's going to get you 3x back when you went through Rakuten, which is basically a shopping portal. Now, you could also choose to earn membership reward points, which is kind of funny or a little bit ironic because you can clearly see the card on the left, and it was a Visa card, so you would think that, to our past story, Amex would have stepped in and said, hey, at least put it on our payment network if you're going to earn MR points and let us get something back like that. But overall, people did kind of like the Rakuten move because, again, they go through the shopping portal. There's usually coupons and stuff in there to begin with. I just didn't know they had a credit card. It's just more odd to me that they're not selling off the portfolio. This seems like a clear step in for someone like a Barclays who takes all the co-branded cards, or even someone who just needs another card, like even a Bank of America who kind of cleared the deck on their co-branded stuff. So I don't know if that's final yet. They may try to find a last-minute suitor. Not really sure, but if you've got a Rakuten card, it looks like it's going to be sunset at the end of September. So, of course, you'll probably get something in the mail from the issuing bank letting you know what the deal is. So if you got any cash back or MR points, just make sure you shift them to wherever you want to shift them to prior to that date. Now, of course, we have to check in with Apple. We just checked in last week with Apple, and they found themselves in an antitrust lawsuit. Well, now it looks like they're not necessarily in a lawsuit, but it could go that way. They have the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, checking into them in their buy now, pay later service. So buy now, pay later has been all the rage. It's kind of mainstream. It seems like a safer way to buy things because they don't use the word interest and they use fixed payments and all that stuff. Well, Apple entered the ring as well with the buy now, pay later. I think they announced that it was going live at the last WWDC in earlier June. And so CFPB stepping in saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't really have a ton of regulation or monitoring over in buy now, pay later land. And on top of that, these tech companies, right, they already have so much data. Not to say that banks don't have a lot of data on us already, but, think about all the information they can collect from your phones, from your devices, things like that. If you layer that on top of financial information, CFPB is kind of like, hey, wait a minute, we should probably look into this, right? And that's exactly what's happening. So overall, I would say that it's best summed up as the CFPB has concerns focused on there. That's not really a full lawsuit yet, but it is, and they are going under the antitrust, banner. So CFPB's also reached out to the other major buy now, pay later services to provide information. So it's really more of like, hey, Apple, you're in the space now, so you got to give us some information. We'll go through and we'll try to figure out what regulation is needed. And so what we have here is from 9to5Mac. This is kind of an excerpt from the article here. So the top consumer financial regulator, CFPB, has warned that big tech's entry into the buy now, pay later lending business risks undermining competition in the nascent sector and raises questions about the use of customer data. In a warning shot to Silicon Valley following Apple's decision to launch its own buy now, pay later service, the director of CFPB said his agency would have to take a very careful look at implications of big tech entering the space. Among the issues the agency would consider was whether it may actually reduce competition and innovation in the market. In response to the question about the Apple launch, he said basically big tech's entry into the short-term lending raises a host of issues, including how companies would use customer data. Is it being combined with browsing history, geolocation history, health data, or other apps, which are all valid concerns if we're honest here. I mean, they have access to all that. We almost readily sign up to give them access to this. So, I don't think this is actually that bad. The last lawsuit we had last week I thought was a bit much, but this one, not really a lawsuit. They're just being looked into, right, as well the whole industry. And I think, this is probably a good thing to just check into and see what they're doing, because a lot of times, as much as I am an Apple fanboy, they do try to hide a lot under the banner of privacy, and we can't always let them just say, no, we privacy and customer protection. We got it. That's why the CFPB exists. So, of course, we'll stay close to that story. Now, with that, we have one more to close out, and which is, I think, one of the more interesting stories of the week. So, we've talked here extensively about the payment network. So, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, the little logo on the bottom of the card there, raising swipe fees or merchant fees, interchange fees, whichever words you prefer. The fees that get assessed, when you make a transaction with your credit card. Well, as you can imagine, this doesn't make merchants happy. Doesn't really make anyone happy except for Visa and them, because everyone's going to get stuck holding the bag except for them. Well, it looks like we have some senators who are taking a harder look into this and trying to pass some actual interesting legislation or a bill that would actually allow merchants to run payment transactions through like any payment network. So what they're doing here is basically saying, hey, at least my understanding of it is what they're trying to do is saying, hey, even though a Visa card is going to be processed through the Visa payment network, obviously, but that doesn't really make it super competitive, right? So, you could have, because the payment network sets the rates, right? So Visa can set one rate, MasterCard can set another rate. And so what the centers are basically saying is, hey, that's really kind of anti-competitive. So what if you could just run a Visa payment through the cheapest network possible of the four, right? As opposed to being locked in, right? That's kind of what they're talking about now. They kind of preparing a bill for this. It could be introduced as early as next week. Now, introduced, in my understanding, doesn't mean, hey, it's live. It really means, hey, we're introducing it to the wider group of senators, Congress, whatever, however the legal process works. These seem like things I should probably know more than just credit card cashback, but here we are. So anyways, it'd have to go through the long process to become a thing, but of course the credit card payment networks did lobby heavily against this, and of course they were like, no, we're gonna try to go for it anyways. I don't think this is the worst thing ever, honestly. I mean, because we end up getting stuck with the increase in swipe fees and all of that, right? So on one hand, it's like, well, it's a Visa card. Of course, it's going to go through their payment network, but we'd really have to go through and see, is there really anything that they've built stopping it from routing through another payment network? Because there are people in between on the transaction that kind of route it. It basically goes from the merchant to like a mid-processor to the payment network to the bank and then all the way back. So I would imagine, if you imagine this metaphor, you could put like a split in there and send it wherever you want, and it would just be up to updating like the payment or the POS systems and the intermediary between the merchant and the credit card network. So it's probably doable. I'm interested to see how this one plays out, because swipe fees, interchange fees are always, a hot topic every so often. They were set to increase, I don't know, years ago. They got put off and now they're back again. So, what does this do for, the payment network benefits that the cards offer? It's almost, less, it could, potentially be less, of an incentive to offer a Visa or MasterCard, for card issuers. It doesn't really matter anymore. So, interested to see, of course, let me know your thoughts on that one down below. But anyways, guys, that's been the news. So, of course, if you liked this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And, of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. Question for you guys is, of course, let me know what you think about the stories. Did you have the Rakuten card? Are you sad to see it go? What's going to be your replacement? As well as, where do you think we're going to break out on this this payment network bill coming up? Do you think it has any weight behind it, or is it just kind of going to be introduced and then fall aside? As well as, what other stories have you seen going on in the news? Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you on Monday.